Hello, it's Fatzoid, and this is the funnest deck I've played so far. The deck has so many options and ways to build it, and my goodness, can you fumble the bag with this one? This is by far the highest skill ceiling I've seen from a deck, and what I mean by that is the more you play the deck, the better the deck actually gets, because you're able to see the combo potential more often on your own. And let's just look at something like Eldritch. Eldritch, I would say, has a low skill ceiling. Yes, you need to learn certain things and certain interactions to play the deck optimally, but essentially the strategy for playing Eldritch is fairly simple, where the strategy for playing DDD is a little more complicated than that, and there's a lot more plays and options that you have to go into and think about. And that's why I think is the real driving force of why a lot of people like this archetype, and I'm starting to see it after playing it a bit. I definitely misplayed playing it. Some of the game, I'm not sure about some of the games I showed, but definitely off camera, I definitely misplayed a good amount, but that's kind of how you learn. But in my defense, though, I was playing this deck on YGOPRO before, and I was playing with cards like DD Griffin, which helps a lot with your combos, and Dark Contract, Patent License, and both those cards are not in Master Duel. Also, another huge miss Master Duel doesn't have the main boss monster, which is Machina. And those are like huge misses, because the main boss monster that is in the TCG is like insane. It literally can single-handedly win you the game, and this deck doesn't really have that. You can say, hey, actually DD Duo Dawn King is pretty crazy, and I would say this card is pretty nuts when you actually get it off and your opponent can't really activate anything to the effect, and it has the once per turn, actually it's not even a once per turn effect, just destroy all spell or traps, which is pretty crazy. And then you have DD Wave High King, which is also a pretty crazy multi-negate on special summons. So this deck does have very strong strategies, but nothing as near as strong as they do in on YGO Pro. So I think some of the times when I was doing strategies, I was thinking, oh, I can get Hawk. It's like, well, no, you can't. So you have to kind of improvise. So that was a little negative when I was testing this deck out on this archetype out on YGO Pro, as I was trying it with cards that didn't exist. So I'd say one of the best and worst things about the deck is you always feel like you could do more. Now you might ask, Fatzoid, that sounds like a good thing. Well, shut up. It is good, but for your mental, it might make you feel like you're dog shit at the game for not seeing a line of play that was there. And it might look obvious when you look at it through the replay, but during the game, maybe it didn't look as obvious. Having a deck that has so many ways of fighting back does feel good. Now, the deck has negatives. One of the main negatives I would say is the deck not having some of the cards that were really good, like DD Griffin, mainly. I think if the deck had DD Griffin, it'd just be like 10 times better right now. But another negative is this deck gets rammed in the ass by Max C, which is another card you don't really deal with in the TCG because it's not, you can't play it. Like, you either play through it or just end your turn and call it a day. I was actually thinking about replacing the Allure of Darknesses in the deck with Crossout Designator, since we run 10 hand traps already, and it could be a good option to combat Max C and Ash, Ash is also pretty annoying to deal with since our searches are so valuable. Other than that, the deck doesn't have many negatives. You can argue piloting the deck is hard, but I also see that as a bonus because it makes me want to play the deck more and get better at it. Other cards I could see that could be good is one of the cards I was using a lot in YGO Pro was the Parry Remap, which allows you to get a 0/0 monster out of your deck added to your hand. So that card's really, really good, but it doesn't feel as good in Master Duel for some reason. Like, I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's just because playing turn 1 DD Saving Kepler is normally a really decent like play on YGO, because you're able to go get Contract and then use Contract to search for Griffin, and then summon Griffin, and then you can go into obviously Abyss, Gilgamesh, and start your whole combo off there. Whereas on here, if you do get Kepler for that cost of half your life points, the end result on here is a lot worse than in YGO. So in YGO, you're going into the boss monster Machina, which I'm going to put on the screen right now so you guys can see what I'm talking about. This card's insane. Whereas here, you typically want to go into some type of negate, especially if you're going first. So you're going to like a Wave High King or Curse King. And since you're going first, it's also blind. Like, you don't even know if... Maybe they don't even have that many special summons. Maybe the deck is like a back row deck, so High King, Caesar isn't as valuable. The good thing is his going to the grave effect is still valuable because you're able to get a Dark Contract out of your deck. Either way, you're getting some type of value. And that's another thing I love about the deck, is the deck is super value heavy. So, I mean, if you have Gilgamesh with High King Caesar out on your field, let's just say that's your turn 1 board, and they Lightning Storm it, you get to get any card from your extra deck out onto the field besides Baron, and you also get to get a Dark Contract. You're setting up for the next turn, which is extremely important. I think that the Perry map and DD Vice and also 1-for-1 could be a 1-for-1 to definitely be a good option in the deck, because it'll let you tutor out any 0 monster out of your deck to the field. So that could definitely be a really solid option there too. But overall, I think this deck was a blast. I highly recommend building it for 2 reasons. First reason, the most important reason, it is fun. And the second reason would be because a lot of the ultras in the deck are hand traps, which you can use for pretty much any deck. Let's actually count. I'll count right now how many ultras are in the deck that are not hand traps. All right. So main deck has 0, and an extra deck has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 ultras for the entire deck that's not hand traps. That's not that bad. That's like pretty good. And you can even argue that Baron de Fleur can be used in a ton of decks. Any deck that has Synchro Summoning, this card could be in. So now you're looking at 5. You got 5 ultras that you really can't use in any other deck besides this. So that's another reason why it's a low risk. So if you don't like the deck, you still have a lot of backup. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time.
I'm a OP boy. Know that the